familiar foes, to say the least. The Alabama Crimson Tide and the Georgia Bulldogs will face off for the second time this season, this time for a championship in Atlanta as we look forward to the college football playoff. It is time to move past the Iron Bowl and talk about Bama, Georgia, round 2 by the numbers. Stick around. This is Way Offsides.
3, 2, let's go.
Hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever the case may be. Hope your Monday's going well. Everybody headed back to work after a holiday break. I know that's tough, but you've got something to look forward to as Alabama, the number 1 seed in the SEC, mind you, will take on the Georgia Bulldogs in round 2 of that classic matchup as God intended for all the marbles in the conference for the SEC championship, likely a berth in the college football playoff. Now, there's some rumor, there's some talk that if Alabama were to lose this game, BYU potentially beats Texas Tech, that Alabama could get left out. I don't see that happening at the moment. It is a concern. It is something that we've talked about, a possibility. So it's something we'll keep our eyes on. But it's very simple. Win and advance. Every game for Alabama right now should be treated as an elimination game that started after they lost to Oklahoma. And it continues. It will continue the rest of the way, and we'll see what the postseason playoff tide looks like under Kalen DeBoer in year 2. Now, Kalen DeBoer has had a ton of success in these kind of matchups. He did at Washington, faced Oregon over there in their championship game, was able to beat Oregon and Dan Lanning a second time. Alabama has a winning record against Georgia overall. They definitely do with Kirby Smart as a head coach. It kind of feels like there's like this external variable of Georgia having an Alabama problem. Now, we're not going to look at any of that today because we can't quantify that. We can't look at that outside of the record. But we are going to start with the defensive side of the ball now. There's a lot to talk about and a lot to unpack here, so we're going to do this in a couple of videos. We're going to talk defense today by the numbers. I know some of you really like these videos. So if you're new here, we'll do the offense soon, so make sure you're plugged in. Make sure you subscribe. It's free to you, keeps the channel free, helps us out, and we'll keep bringing you content all week long as we inch closer to the 2025 SEC championship game. Now, right off the bat, these defenses, I will tell you this. One of them has underperformed and one of them has overperformed. And I'm not saying this from a fan standpoint. I'm talking traditionally, Georgia's pass rush is really, really good. Their secondary is really, really good. This season, it's been a little hit or miss, especially on the pass rush side of the ball. We're going to talk about that in a second. Alabama's defense has been very, very good in the pass rush. They've gotten better as the season has gone on and progressed. Alabama does not look like the same defense that Georgia played back in week 4 of the college football playoff system, or excuse me, college football season. I don't know why I said playoff. And you could make the same argument for the Georgia defense. Now, Alabama, we'll start off with total defense, right? Total defense, these guys are neck and neck. Like, this is brick wall meets brick wall. Alabama's 12th in the country. All right. They average letting up about 282.2 yards per game. Georgia is right behind them on par at 13th in the country, averaging about 290.8 yards per game. Now, Georgia played Ole Miss, right? Much better offense. One that we don't have that head-to-head comparison to look at. But when you look at, some of the same folks, Auburn, Tennessee, there's a lot of similarities between these two defenses. Now, rush defense, that's the next thing. This is where there's a little bit of a disparity between the two in favor of Georgia. Georgia has the 6th ranked rush defense in the country. They're allowing only 86.1 yards per game. Alabama, if you'll remember, after the first couple of weeks, had like the 116th ranked rush defense in the country. Absolutely insane. It's etched up, gotten better as we've moved forward. Kane Wilmots figured out that personnel. They've still been susceptible to pop plays here or there. Auburn had a couple on the ground, but overall, Alabama comes in ranked at 36 in the country, allowing 124.3 yards per game. You got about a 50-yard difference there. So, 40, 50-yard difference. So Does that equal a score? It could. It absolutely could, especially when we're talking about field goal kickers. So Alabama, obviously, we're going to look at the offensive side of the ball later on. Georgia runs the ball better than Alabama. They have historically this season. So Alabama's going to have to shore up that run defense. Georgia gashed them in the first matchup a couple of times. Alabama since then has played better in the run defense, but they've still allowed, those kind of pop plays. So we want to see the Tide kind of get that figured out. It's going to be a task. However, Georgia is going to start several second string offensive linemen due to injury. Alabama's dealing with injury too. In the first matchup, Georgia rushed for 227 yards against the Tide. A lot of that came in the fourth quarter. Kirby Smart started figuring out that defense. Alabama, again, they're going to have to shore that up. Now, Alabama's run defense is no slouch. Both of these defenses are really good. However, if we're talking edge, you got to give it to the Georgia Bulldogs. Now, what about the secondaries? Now, so there's a couple of areas where Alabama has an advantage, and this is one of them. Okay. Alabama's secondary is allowing 157.8 yards per game. That is best for seventh in the country. Georgia's 44th in the country, and they're allowing around 204.8 yards per game. So you've got that kind of same yardage disparity in Bama's favor as in the secondary, as opposed to the rush defense, which falls in Georgia's favor. So those kind of, in my mind, they kind of iron each other out or wash each other out. And then let's look at scoring defense. Again, back to back. Alabama's 11th in the country, only allowing 16.5 points per game. Georgia's 12th, allowing 16.67 points per game. These are two dead even teams defensively. Bama's got the advantage in terms of the secondary. They've got the better secondary. Georgia looks like they've got the better rush defense. Now, I think Bama's rush defense number is skewed a little bit because, the first couple of games of the season where they're trying to get their legs under them, the first maybe 5 or 6 games, you had some teams really kind of bust them on the ground. You know what I mean? I was trying not to say bust them, but I did. Go ahead, chat. Say it in the comment section. But anyway, but you look at the Vanderbilt game. You had a couple of runs that ended up looking like a huge rush total, but overall, they were just a couple busted plays. I mean, hell, it even happened in the Iron Bowl. So just dead even there. Now, let's look further, dive a little bit deeper here, and look at where Alabama has gotten better and where Georgia has really not met expectations this year. And that's in team sacks. All right. Defensively, Alabama has gotten better at affecting the passer, at rushing the passer, at getting the passer down on the ground. This was a problem they had last season in 2024. They could get there, but they just couldn't get them on the ground. They haven't had a ton of trouble with that this year. I will say in that Oklahoma game, Alabama struggled to get pressure on John Mateer. They did fine in the Iron Bowl. However, I feel like, mobile quarterbacks, they can roll off the spot. That can cause some issues for Bama. Gunnar Stockton can do that, but so can Ty Simpson. So Alabama ranks 68 in the country, averaging 2 sacks per game. Now, that also is a little bit skewed because early on in the season, Alabama wasn't sacking quarterbacks. This is an area where they've gotten better week in and week out. Overall, Alabama's defense has gotten better every single week. Right. And they've kept Alabama in position to win games. The Oklahoma game is a great example. Alabama's offense, despite doing everything wrong it could, had multiple opportunities to win that football game because of their defense. Georgia does the same thing. But in terms of team sacks, Georgia ranks 114th in the country. They're averaging about 1.42 per game. Now, that doesn't sound like a big difference when you're looking at the average sacks per game. The ranking sounds big, but you've got a lot of teams in there that are averaging between 1.3 and 2 per game. So there's really not that big of a difference. But I think when we consider that Georgia's going to be without several of their offensive linemen, they're dinged up, Alabama's got an opportunity to really impact Gunnar Stockton. I watched the Georgia Tech game. I think Gunnar Stockton is a good quarterback when he has time. I think Alabama will have an opportunity to affect him negatively. Georgia Tech was able to do it. Georgia was just a better football team. I think Alabama and Kane Womack will have a plan for this moving forward, making Gunnar Stockton uncomfortable, keeping him uncomfortable for 4 quarters. If the Tide can do that, it might be hard for Georgia to score points. But you can say the same thing on the other side of the ball. Georgia could do the same thing for Alabama. Alabama's offensive line is going to come into this game dinged up. They're missing one of their best tight ends, who was very, very helpful in run blocking, pass blocking, in Josh Cuevas. He will not play. Potentially don't have Jim Miller. I don't think you're going to have Jim Miller personally. We'll find out later on today. But I think Alabama overall has the defensive edge in this game, barely. I don't want to take anything away from Georgia. I have a massive amount of respect for Georgia. I'm not a Georgia fan at all, but I think Alabama fans and Georgia fans, out of anybody in college football, they respect each other. And so I don't want to look too deep into, a disparity between team sacks, because a lot of the issues Georgia is having on their offensive line, Alabama is as well. And so when we look at the offensive side of this thing, and that video will come out tomorrow, so make sure you're subscribed, it'll really hone in on turnovers and the quarterback, as it seems to have been for a while for Alabama. Game's going to fall on Ty Simpson in that defense. So tell me what you think. I want to hear your final score predictions in the comment section below. I'll give you mine live this Thursday night on the live show as we preview this game. It's going to be popping. You need to be there, 8 p.m. Central Time, live on YouTube. If you're not subscribed, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you do not miss it. Championship weekend is going to carry a lot of weight, man. A lot of weight. So, as always, say your prayers, read your Bibles, wash your hands, horns down, beat Auburn and LSU and Tennessee to Roll Tide.